Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly pop culture wrap-up. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin Robbie Billups. This is the weekly pop culture wrap-up. It's the show where I go over the week's pop culture news, mostly comic books and movies, but before we get into that, I want to invite you to like this video. Share this video with someone who you think may enjoy it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really does help us out. Also, our good friends at Whatnot have given us an invite code, so if you've always been hesitant but never tried out Whatnot, you can do so at the link provided in the description, and it will give you $15 off your first purchase. So that's super cool, and it also helps support the channel. Now moving on to the weekly pop culture wrap-up, Dawn of DC. So we knew that this was coming. We've known this was coming for a while. Whenever DC has a crisis event, they always have to have some kind of rededication right afterwards, right? And that rededication this time is called Dawn of DC, which is kind of silly because we've had DC for a while, but whatever. It's the dawn of the next wave. And what that means is the next wave of titles, the next wave of initiatives, the next wave of events. Now, the first event of the year as labeled on this timeline, and yeah, DC's trying to get into that Marvel timeline thing. I mean, it's a little like rip-offy, but whatever, that's sure, let's go for it. But Lazarus Planet is coming out, and a lot of stuff that they have announced is spinning out of that. Now, I do want, before we get into some of the titles that have been announced, I want to point out that in the middle of this timeline right there, there is an event called Night, right? So it's night, like the dark night, right? Or not nighttime. You get what I think this event's called Nighttime. I think the T is night time. I think it's an event centered around Batman and his recent, the ramifications from his recent messing around with hyper time, right? So that's my first guess, my first call it in the air. So if it's right, then I'll point back to this. If it's wrong, maybe one of the other 20 predictions that I come up with between now and then. Anyway, I think that's nighttime. And if you look, an interesting thing about this timeline is how certain ideas, it seems like, go up and then down and then, I don't know, there's this little bit with electricity, it doesn't matter. Anyway, some new titles have been announced. Let's talk about it. In March, we have the Unstoppable Doom Patrol. This is going to be written by Dennis Culver with artwork by Chris Burnham. It astounds me that there hasn't been a Doom Patrol book during the time that there was a Doom Patrol show that was a moderate success. It was like a cult following, but a lot of people were digging it, and I think that you could carve out a readership for a Doom Patrol book in this moment. And so maybe it's a little too late. We'll see about that, but it's a decent creative team that they got on here. First of all, Chris Burnham, holy cow, I love Chris Burnham. I've been wondering, like, when's he going to pop back up? I had no idea he'd pop back up at DC doing Doom Patrol, but I'm really excited for that. Dennis Culver, who was the co-writer with Josh Williamson on things like Infinite Frontier, Justice League Incarnate, was he one of the Flashpoint Beyond writers? I think there was 3 writers on that. Jeremy Johns, holy cow, Jeff Johns, Jeremy Adams, is that his name? And then Dennis Culver, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Who's Jeffrey Johns? Oh, that's the YouTuber guy, right? He does the movie reviews. I like him. I like him a lot. Doom Patrol. This looks cool. I'm really excited to see what Chris Burnham can do on the artwork. And it seems like we heard that Mark Waid was kind of like a creative director for this year. And he definitely spotlighted Doom Patrol at the beginning of World's Finest. So that seems to kind of line up. This is spinning out of Lazarus Planet, apparently. Superboy, the Man of Tomorrow, launches in April by Kenny Porter and Jonoy Lindsay. This is the winner of the DC Round Robin for this year. I love Connor Kent. He's my Superboy. I mean, when the death and return and reign of the Superman happened, I was like that prime age. I was like 12 years old. It was like perfect timing for me. I always have a soft spot in my heart for this character, so we'll definitely check that one out. Green Lantern Hal Jordan in April, written by Mariko Tamaki, but no artist attached. We have no art for this book. Then we got Green Arrow in April. That's going to be written by Josh Williamson with artwork by Sean Hazaksky. So Josh Williamson seems like, especially after you do a Crisis book, you need something big. So he's on Superman, right, which starts in February. And then he's on Green Arrow. Seems odd, but I think that Williamson has a passion for this character, and they're definitely trying to build something up. And he's been utilized in interesting ways in Dark Crisis, especially at the end. You just wait and see. Then we've got Batman Brave and the Bold. That's going to be in May. It's going to be a rotating cast of creators, kind of like an anthology book, I guess. But the first creators that we get attached to it are Tom King, Gilliam March, Mitch Gerrits, Gabriel Hardman, Dan Mora, Rob Williams. So, sounds pretty interesting to me. In May, we're getting a Cyborg series. No writer, no artist attached. Nothing except for, in May, we're doing Cyborg. So, okay. Shazam is relaunching in June with Mark Waid and Dan Mora. Holy cow. Mark Waid and Dan Mora right now are pretty much one of the powerhouse teams at DC. They're really doing great work right now on Batman Superman World's Finest, which means probably either that title's ending or handing off to another creative team. We'll see how that goes. But a Shazam book by Dan Mora and Mark Waid. And Shazam's one of those characters that Mark Waid has written, but I don't think he's ever written a Shazam series. And Dan Mora, they know what they've got with Dan Mora, and they know that no matter what book they put him on, we're gonna follow. So, a good way to boost up sales for Shazam, right? Then we got The Penguin in June by Tom King, Stefano Gaudino. We'll see. And also they say that The Penguin is a working title, so it may be called something different, but you notice now they're integrating Tom King back into continuity. So we'll see what happens out of that. I think he's better outside of continuity, but you never know. Maybe he's learned his lesson. I don't know. What lesson is there to learn? Anyway, Steelworks is a new book in June, spotlighting Steel. It's going to be the 30th anniversary of Steel, so I think that's appropriate. We have no creative team announced for this one at all. And then we've got John Stewart, a Green Lantern John Stewart book. That's going to drop at some point. No date, no artist, but we know Philip Kennedy Johnson is going to be writing that one. So, seems pretty cool. For the most part, it's just like every time Marvel did one of their little Marvel Now, all new Marvel Now, one of those little relaunches. Whenever DC does this thing, all they do is just take their creators and just shift them around, right? But some of these shifts sound really interesting to me, and I like the idea of building to something cohesively through the entire line. I kind of like this focus that we're getting, and I just hope that it pans out, so we'll see. From Marvel in March, we've got Cosmic Ghost Rider. That's right, a new Cosmic Ghost Rider title, this time by Stephanie Phillips and Juan Cabal. That's a pretty top-notch team. I think Stephanie Phillips is a solid writer. She's done work I really liked. She's done work that I thought was just okay. Juan Cabal, the same. There have been times where I thought his art shined and times where I thought it was just okay. So, that being said, Cosmic Ghost Rider, interesting enough character. You got to keep that IP alive. Why not do a miniseries or an ongoing? Marvel doesn't like to admit if something's limited or ongoing usually, so we have no idea. I Am Iron Man is a new book in March by Maria Ayodele and Dotun Akande. I apologize, probably butchered those names. So I Am Iron Man is coming behind a relaunch of Invincible Iron Man by Jerry Duggan, and this one's going to be like an anthology series, but by the same creative team, I guess telling one cohesive story, but throughout the entirety of Iron Man's history. It is an anniversary year in 2023 for Iron Man and a lot of other Marvel properties. Think back to 1993, you remember all those like little corner boxes, like the 30th anniversary of Iron Man, 30th anniversary of the X-Men, all that kind of stuff, so they're gonna lean into that, y'all. They're gonna lean into that, but it seems odd that Iron Man being a book that has struggled in sales, especially in the latest run, to relaunch and hopefully have some success there, but they're already planning a second Iron Man title. I don't know if the answer to a low-selling Iron Man book is to come out with two to replace it. But it sounds like an interesting idea. I'm not familiar with those creators. Maybe they've done great work. Spider-Gwen Shadow Clones is a new miniseries in March. Emily Kim and Kay Zama are the creators on this one. It is a sequel to Gwenverse, basically. In Gwenverse, we had a whole multiverse of Gwen Stacy characters as other heroes, as Thor, Gwen Thor, as just whatever, any other kind of character. This one is the same idea, but villains, right? So now Spider-Gwen's going to have to go up against a bunch of versions of her from across the multiverse that are villainous characters. So there's a Sandman type. There's a Dr. Octopus type. That kind of thing, right? Just seems silly. It just seems like, okay, what about we put this, Gwen is Dr. Octopus. Gwen is Green Goblin. Gwen is Sandman. Green is Mysterio. Okay, where's the creativity in that? Like, just tell a good story. Maybe it's telling a good story, but the Gwen stuff just kind of loses me for the most part. Night Fever is a new one from Image Comics in June of 2023 from Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. Always excited when we get a new announcement from them and their upcoming works. They are working right now, of course, on the Reckless series, and then they're going to do a brief stint back in Criminal, and then they're doing Night Fever, which is their take on a Jekyll and Hyde type story. These two cats work so well together, they can do whatever they want. I'll read it. I'll read it. Also from Image, in February, we have Local Man. This one's by Tony Fleece, friend of the show, and Tim Seeley. They're going to be writing and drawing it together. And it's about a superhero who had some success. He's had a fall. He has to go back to his small town home, live with his parents, and it's about the ramifications of that and what that leads to, right? Sounds really interesting. I'm big into Tony Fleece's work, so I'll definitely check this out. He's a super cool dude. Torrent is a new one from Image in February that's kind of like, it's like about a hero who is forced to become a vigilante. So a hero that has to cross that line. We've seen this dealt with plenty of times in superhero comics, but at Image, let's see what they can do with it here. We got Mark Guggenheim and Justin Greenwood attached to that one. Almighty is a new Image book in February, 5 issues, because sometimes they let us know that they're miniseries when it's over at Image. It's by Edward LaRoche and Brad Simpson. I love Brad Simpson's coloring. Don't know much about LaRoche's work, but it's described as Mad Max meets Annihilation. So whatever that means to you, take what you will. Then we've got Blood Tree from Image in February. Lots of new number ones from Image in February by Peter J. Tomasi and Maxim Simic. And it's about someone who goes out and starts killing the families of murderers. So like serial killers or just terrible people or, murderers, right? And they go, and I guess they think it's tied into the family bloodline. They start slaughtering their family. Their innocent family, right? So that's the idea behind that one. The Last Barbarians is another one in February from Image. This is by Brian Haberlin and Gerard Van Dyke. And this is like a fantasy type thing. I don't really recall too much. Oh, they were trying to say in a fantasy world, you think the possibilities would be endless, but not quite so much. So if you like D&D, if you like fantasy, this might be one to check out. Obviously, I'll check out all of these on the weekly comic book review. Monarch is a new one from Image in February by Rodney Barnes and Alex Lenz. And it's about these kids growing up in Compton, and then an alien invasion happens. So an alien invasion from the perspective of kids living in Compton, that sounds interesting to me. I'll definitely check that out. From Boom Studios in February, we have Harrower, or is it Harrower? 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 Y'all let me know. A, Harrower. B, Harrower. I think it's Harrower. I don't know. Either way, it's by Justin Jordan and Brom Revel. It's described as a slasher deconstruction. Like a deconstructing of the slasher genre. Okay. Sure, let's Alan Moore the hell out of some slasher fiction. Let's do that. 5 issues starting in February. Then we got from Dynamite in February, Draculina, Blood Simple. Has nothing to do with Coen Brothers, but I love that reference. Written by Christopher Priest with artwork by Michael Stay Maria. I love what Priest is doing with Vampirella. The problem is I haven't read all of it and I get lost at times, but I did read through most of that first Draculina series that he did and I enjoyed it for the most part. Plus, she's a sexy woman. I'm just going to say that. Barbarella, speaking of sexy women, Center Cannot Hold is a new series starting in February by Sarah Hoyt and Ricardo Bagani. I usually quickly fall out of the Barbarella books, but it's probably because I haven't watched that Barbarella movie since I was like in middle school, and I barely remember it. Should I revisit Barbarella? Is it something you'd like to see us cover on PCP Movie Night? Let me know in the comments down below. And then we got a new Mad Balls vs. Garbage Pail Kids series. Time again, slime again, same creative team, debuting in February. I'm all here for it. I love the Mad Balls. I love the Garbage Pail Kids. I loved that Mad Balls vs. Garbage Pail Kids series. It was just gigantic moronic splendor. Big dumb fun, and I had so much fun with it in a giant way. Loved my splendor with that book. And then, the John Wick writer and creator is doing a Streets of Rage movie. He's writing a Streets of Rage movie. Streets of Rage from Sega Genesis. I have many fond memories of hanging out with my homies back when we were like 12, 13 or something, playing through Streets of Rage movies. In fact, right now, or games. In fact, right now, it's got me wanting to go plug up my Genesis Mini and play some Streets of Rage 2. So I may go do that. Anyway, that's what we got for you this week. What do you got? What's coming up here at PCP? Well, first of all, we got Dylan's Horror Show tonight. We're talking about the latest Hellraiser film, the Hulu 2022 Hellraiser reimagining, reinvention, if you will. You can call it a reboot, but I really love that they didn't go like a complete reboot or a requel kind of approach. Anyway, my full thoughts, and they have changed since I initially reviewed it for the first time. So this is my second viewing, which, has it gone up? Has it gone down? I'll be honest with you, might have been a bit too high on it at first, but it's easy to get high on Hellraiser. That being said, Sunday night, Rockin Robbie Live. It's going to be a fun show. I'm going to be taste testing that new fruit cake Mountain Dew. Sounds terrible. And we'll definitely be trying that one out. And then Monday night, PCP Movie Night, Godfather Part 2. One of the greatest films ever made. Nuff said. So that's what we got coming up. What do you got? Let us know in the comments below any of your thoughts about any of the stuff that we covered today or anything that we didn't. We really do appreciate you checking out the video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/PCP. I've been Rockin Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on living, reading, loving, station, pop, pop, boom!